Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Virtual Ops 2020. It's a big pleasure for me to have you with us. Today we are going to talk about digital enablers for leaner and agile airline operations. My name is Daniel Stecher. I'm Vice President Airline Operations at IBS Software. I'm suggesting that we are introducing everybody, starting maybe with Eugene, our colleague in Hong Kong, and then everybody is telling for which airline he's working and how many years in the industry. Before we start that, some information about the logistics. Please mute yourself if you're not talking. Switch on the camera if you're talking, because we want to foster networking and the connections in the industry. And the format of this is pretty much in line with our virtual happy hour, which we are conducting since end of March. Everybody can freely speak up. You can use the raise hand functionality here in MS Teams, but we want to really engage in dialogue. Sapna is going to present, of course, but you can always ask questions during the presentation, so it's not a one direction webinar style, which you might know from other suppliers or vendors. We want to do it a little bit more lively and interactive. So Eugene, if you are going to start yourself, that would be great, please.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. My name is Eugene. Last name is Lu. You call me Eugene. I'm based in Hong Kong, and I actually just joined IBS 2 weeks ago from another travel company. I've been in the industry for quite some time, so I'm happy to take up this role and managing Greater China region, which consists of China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. So yeah, I'm in the sales and marketing team, so pleased to be in this session and pleased to meet all of you here.
Yvonne,
thank you.
Let's go to Singapore, please.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Yvonne from the IBS region sales team based in Singapore. So I've been with IBS for about 3 years now, previously working with IATA and Singapore Airlines. Very nice to meet all of you, and look forward to a good discussion this afternoon.
Let's go to
Christian.
Let's go to down under to Auckland. Suzanne, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne Thimbui from Air New Zealand, so head of airline operations in Auckland. I head up the ops centres for our Air New Zealand network, so we have 2 of those, one in Christchurch and one in Auckland. And thanks for having me today.
Pleasure's on our side. So let's go to Australia. Sean. Sean, you're muted. Then let's
Hi,
go
everyone.
to the...
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sean Hansen. I work for Qantas in the integrated I manage drone operations.
Let's go to the Netherlands. Roland.
Hi, good morning. I'm Roland Jordan. I'm the product owner of the iCrew application at KLM Amsterdam, working for 40 years at KLM. And this is my very last year because as of December, I will be retired.
Let's go to Dubai. Peter.
Good morning, all. Sorry, I've just joined a bit late. My name is Peter Reynolds. I'm responsible for systems in network operations at Emirates Airline, which includes IBS, what we've got, ACTS, and Core.
Let's go to Taiwan, to Kasper.
Hello, I'm Casper. I'm from Starlux Airlines. This is the 24th years I work in the airline industry. I was involved the traffic representative in Garuda and also the SOC, OCC, and dispatcher in my previous company. Now I work as the senior IT lead for the operation systems. And beside me is Victor.
Hi, I'm Victor Lee. I joined Starlux Airline in 2018. Before I joined here, I was in EVA Airs for also more than 20 years. So now I am in IT departments as a project director. I'm responsible for flight operation related systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Germany. Christian.
Hi, good morning. My name is Christian Gessner. I'm responsible for the global sales and marketing of iCargo, which is the cargo line of products at IBS. I've been 20 years in the industry, and by accident, I started my career at EFA Airways Cargo, actually in Frankfurt.
Kelly, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Kelly Spragg. I work in IT for Virgin Australia. So I'm basically a technology partner, and one of the areas I look after is our network operations area, which includes the OCC. So not working directly in the operation, but sort of involved in trying to understand, I guess, what they want to do and how systems can help them get there.
Let's get back to Dubai again. Nathan, please.
Yes, good morning, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. My name's Nathan Thomas, and I work in operations here in Emirates. Been in the industry approximately 25 years, and just finishing 18 years here in Dubai with Emirates.
Let's go down under again to New Zealand. Sergio. Sergio, you can hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good day, Daniel and everyone. My name is Sergio George, and I work for digital part of Air New Zealand. I've been part of operations within Air New Zealand for the past 4 to 5 years. Thank you.
Let's go to Malaysia. Mohanan, please.
Hi, Daniel and everyone. My name is Mohanan, and I'm working in AirAsia Group for the network management center. Mainly, my area of responsibility is on the crew resource planning, and I'm here for last 7 years and having approximately 20 years of experience in the aviation field. Thank you.
Ricardo. Ricardo, the stage is yours.
Hi, I'm Ricardo. I'm working from Emirates Airline, and I work with Peter Reynolds, and I'm handling ACTS since the beginning of ACTS.
We also have a guest from Frost & Sullivan. Abhilash, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. Hi, Daniel. Hi, everyone. I'm Abhilash.
We can barely hear you. It's maybe a bandwidth issue. Deepa Kumar,
Hi.
The stage is yours. But Abhilash, please go on.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Now it's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm Abhilash. I'm a research analyst from a company called Frost & Sullivan. We provide strategic consulting services for every vertical there is. And I'm mainly focused on the commercial aviation part, especially the airline. And I'm more interested in what digital transformation activities are going around.
Then let's move to India and Aditi. I think she dropped. Then let's go to Mahal.
Hi, I'm Mahal Matthew. I work with Peter Reynolds in Emirates Airlines. I work with him on the systems for Emirates Airlines, especially the operations. Thank you.
And then Deepak Kumar, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deepak. I'm a senior business analyst with Cathay Pacific Airways, and I have been with the industry for nearly 20 years and have worked on flight operations and distribution areas, now working on the digital cabin crew experience and operations. Thank you.
So if I'm somehow calculating correctly, I would estimate we have here 300 years of airline operations experience in this call, which is amazing. We just have RC joining. If you want to introduce yourself shortly, please.
Hello everyone, I'm RC from Interglobe Aviation Indigo, working in the crewing team out here in OCC. Thanks a lot.
So Sapna, now the stage is yours. And again, Sapna is going to present, but you can always raise your hand and speak up and ask. If you don't want to speak, please mute yourself in order to have a good quality for the conversation. So enjoy, and Sapna, the stage is yours.
Hello everybody, I'm Sapna. It's great to meet you today, and it's such a varying crowd. I'm consultant to the airline operations product of IBS, and in the process of building the product and fitting it in gaps of airlines, I've been able to interact with more than 50 plus airlines, from Emirates to Qantas, Etihad, Cathay Pacific, Malaysian, Korean, British Airways, KLM, Lufthansa, etc. Thank you for being here. Let me just share my slide and confirm whether you can access it. My presentation now?
Yes.
Great, excellent. Right. Now as well, right? Okay. So this group seems to be a group that has seen more than one airline crisis, and surely would have a brain that thinks more opportunity than crisis, because from the second crisis onwards at least. We have been talking to our virtual airline community, reaching out to our partners and prospects and customers, and consolidating the experiences that they have been having through COVID. We've put that all in this presentation, and please consider that we'd like to make it very interactive, kind of a discussion and debate, and my slides are only to enable that. So please stop me whenever you want to. So when we've been reaching out to our colleagues, let me introduce these topic to you, what we are going to discuss today. They have been discussing about 3 different stages that they've been going through. Kind of an abyss till the June period, a different kind of uncertainty from June onwards, even though there's an upswing of operations. And they foresee another different type of world from September onwards, when kind of the grants and the payroll support might come to an end. In April, they were talking about an abyss of a situation that has retracted back to 2006 levels, much worse than the 9/11 and the 2008 and 9 financial crisis put together. Capacity is falling down to 10%, revenue of passengers minus 93%, even cargo falling to about minus 29%. Some airlines and partners of ours have said that they've been bleeding $60 million per day. Some of our friends like LATAM and Avianca, Aeromexico restructuring and filing for bankruptcy. Virgin, of course, shifting hands to Bain Capital. So we've been hearing a lot during the April and following periods. From June to July, yes, there's been more upswing of operations. There were good news in the social media and from our partners coming through, like Emirates talking about flying their 380s again in the sky, their new medical cover policy, which is great, Dubai reopening messages that I've been getting on my email, China Airlines ending retrospectively their wage cut program, the US-Europe bridges that have been created, Lufthansa coming in, explaining how 80 plus European destinations have been opened for them, despite of the recent Spain quarantine issues, and the 30 plus international destinations that were being opened. So things are looking up, and TUI was also saying that leisure travel was really catching on, and there was 50% more bookings that they're having since the start of July. So that's great, and capacity seems to be building up to around 30 to 40% forward, unless there are the unexpected spikes due to quarantine issues, etc. So If I go to here, what we are talking today is we have been talking to our airlines and understanding what are the immediate concerns that they have been having and what they see it flowing through into the future. They've explained to us that most of their immediate concerns are about responding to the different customer demand bubbles that are happening across the globe, thinking about how they can control their cost and liquidating and having more free cash, catching up to the regulatory authorities on operational safety, at the same time giving their customers and staff confidence that it's safe to be in the skies. And the fourth one is, of course, to maintain productivity with whatever limited resources they have with them, and the catching up of the remote operations mode of working. But they were also telling us that when they are firefighting and living day by day, they're saying that one of the learnings is that speed is trumping perfection, which is a message that's similar to what the WHO chief is giving. And they've also been saying that they've been learning in this process, and this jolt, which they are calling COVID as, is kind of an accelerator. Some of the things that have been on their backlogs for quite some time, be it re-engineering some of their business processes and resetting them to a better place, looking at their IT strategies and looking at their landscapes and seeing what's critical, what's not, rearranging that a bit, looking at their project practices and people practices and saying, is there anything better that we can do? And overall converting the airline into nimbler and re-engineered and agile airlines or machines. And they've also been adding that some of these practices that they have been learning in the process of re-engineering have, and they see it flowing into the future, into longer sustainable practices, that is filtering out some of these quickly learned practices during this extended jolt period into a more sustainable kind of operational efficiency processes. So the good practices in the people, project, IT, and business processes would seep through and make the airline a more resilient and disruption-proof airline in the operations world in the future. So question I have here is, what do you think? Do you subscribe to this kind of a thought? Have you seen this as a jolt that's accelerating good transformations at your airlines? And do you see some of these transformations moving through into the long term? Before I come to the day's agenda, that's, I hope, to engage you in that kind of a discussion about what you think about this introduction and whether you subscribe to the same thought. Open to you. What do you think, Roland? What do you think, Peter? Do you see?
It's very difficult to look at operational transformation at this period of time when obviously revenues are down and everything else associated to it. But to keep us going, a lot of us, as you said, have done some right sizing. I think we called the exercise here. So there are a lot of airlines that are trimming back on the workforce. So an operational transformation and technology over the next few years will be the way that we all should be looking to prevent us having to put back the fats that we've removed so far. At the moment, the issue is for every airline in the world. I don't think there are any exceptions to this. Obviously, the issue we have is how much can we invest in the future and into technology to improve the way we do things and streamline things. But on the back of that, you've still got to take the other side of it. We now have a reduced workforce, so we have to find smarter ways of doing things because we can't just flog ourselves to death trying to do the same amount of work with less resources than we previously had.
Thank you, Peter. So working with less resources and thinking about what investments or whether you should invest in IT is a message that we are getting from this. If we move on, this is the plan for the day, but I'm happy to be flexible to what you want to discuss and debate on. The first 30 minutes from now, I'd like to spend on discussing those 4 pieces of airline priorities that we were talking about. That's cost, how airlines are managing cost, responsiveness, productivity, and safety concerns, and what they see as seeping through into the future. The next 20 minutes on how technology will support that kind of an operational transformation. And the next 30 minutes on, from this, what will sustain onto the future to make the airline operations world more efficient. Your thoughts on that, and also how digitization and technology practices would support that. So that's how I've divided the presentation and hopefully the timing bars for them, so that we do reach to the end of the presentation today.
And if you want to speak up, you can use the raise hand functionality, which is inbuilt in MS Teams.
Definitely. So going first into the how airlines are tackling their priorities and what they see seeping through. The first and primary one we were being told by airlines is that there is uncertain customer demand, and that's also dependent on the ability of their customers to travel and their confidence to travel, which in turn was dependent on the economic revival and trade revival, and also on countries lifting their travel restrictions and airlines and governments giving a consistent message about safety of being on the skies and when containment and vaccines are going to be available. So there is a debate on what kind of recovery it's going to be, when it's going to recover back to the 2019 levels. Is it going to be a W-shaped recovery, as some of the airlines in the US are saying? Is it going to reflect the world GDP graphs, which is more of an L-shaped? Is it going to be faster, Nike swoosh kind of return? So that's a debate going on. Another aspect that airlines are saying about the uncertain demand is about how their customers are booking with them. For instance, IATA was talking to passengers, and their survey says that 22 weeks prior to the winter season, there were 59% less bookings for the 1st to 7 November 2019 period, which is typically very low compared to last year's. And people are making last moment bookings. That is 61% or more passengers are making their bookings 0 to 3 days before travel. And OAG saying that what's being planned and what's being actually operated is a 50% gap. And what airlines have been saying they are doing to tackle these uncertainties and the theories about when things will come back is that they have drastically reduced their planning cycles and they are doing dynamic replanning. So Indigo, Jeremy was explaining to us that they have refrigerated all their replanning products and they're doing 2 weekly schedule planning, weekly, pairing and rostering planning, and day-to-day living out of the changes. Resources also being scaled to and restructured to meet the demand requirements that are bubbling up from different areas. One major thing is they are repurposing things to cargo, clearing the restrictions and regulations for that, and moving passenger airline bodies even to cargo operations. A lot of bulk changes, be it in rules or in route changes or the report changes of the pairings and trips. A lot of bulk changes happening, and massive need for internal communication between departments and faster informed decision making during recoveries. So these are some of the immediate operational changes that airlines have been explaining to us. But what they see as sustaining from this is flexibility of the plans. Are the schedule plans and the pairing plans and everything going to be so long back before the day of operations? Are they going to take more inputs from other departments, feedbacks from other departments, and keep improving? Is the manpower plan going to keep improving by taking feedback from pairings and rosters and giving a better idea of what's the crew requirement? That kind of ideas are coming up. And there also is a need for higher reactivity of operations and a link to the customer demand. So it's more of an integrated planning and tracking linked to the passenger demand and everything around it. So
question two, I have a question.
From,
Suzanne, I was very glad to read that Air New Zealand is already back on 70% on the domestic travel. And I'm hearing very often hectic times, even from carriers who have only 10% of the traffic up and running. How are you dealing currently with these short-term changes? And do you also then have hectic times, or you could quickly adjust the processes in order to cope with the 70% domestic travel?
Yeah, so it has been hectic times. We spent quite a considerable amount of time ramping down our schedule, and as fast as we were pulling out flying, we then turned around and started pushing flying back in. So we have had to alter our demand and supply planning process to very close in. So normally we would never work within published crew rosters, but we have gotten very experienced and good at pushing additional flying into live rosters and making decisions around increasing capacity within the live roster. So our rosters are 28 days for our jet crew, and we've got a decision coming up. So just been talking through one of those decisions, which is around our Pacific Island bubble and whether we can or can't operate Rarotonga to Rarotonga and back. So we were having a discussion around pushing additional call lines into our crew rosters, and then we will just pick that up from call and crew it. So a lot being done close in. Was very, very difficult at the beginning, but our base schedule has settled down, but we're just trying to keep up with demand changing and border rules changing at short notice.
Thank you for that. I have another question to all of you in this panel. I think here for me, most critical word is confidence to travel. I think that's one of the major topics at the moment. How is your airline providing confidence to your passengers in order to stimulate the rebound of travel and traffic again? Maybe you can share some of your measures you have initiated to provide confidence to your passengers.
Daniel, I can talk to that from an Air New Zealand point of view. I mean, domestically, we're not seeing any problem with New Zealanders wishing to travel domestically. We have had a massive uptake. Internationally, I think off the top of my head, we had about 17,000 people travel out of New Zealand in the last month. So, and quite a portion of those are actually Kiwis traveling out and doing their holidays and coming back. So we're seeing quite decent loads out of New Zealand. We're just kept by some of the restrictions with where we can operate to.
Thank you. Okay, Sapna, please go on.
Yeah. A question from me here is, do you think these are the operational changes that are happening to respond to customer demand? And do you agree to these kind of changes that will sustain in the future? Or is there anything else you think that's happening to manage this and what's flowing on into the future? Any more inputs from you here, or corrections or feedback? But you can, I think, can talk about that in the next few slides as well. So I'll just move on to the next. So the next priority is, of course, improving the liquidity and controlling costs. So if you look at that global map over there, overall passenger demand and passenger volumes have fallen to 2.2 to 2.9 billion, or not fallen to, it's rather an ICAO forecast of what is going to happen overall in 2020 compared to business as usual. And gross revenues will be falling, gross revenue loss will be between 289 to 387 billion is what the forecast is. Till July, there was around 75 million flights that's cancelled. So that's huge response of capacity fall to the falling passenger demand. Again, you see that regions of Asia Pacific and Europe seem to be, or is forecasted to be the most hit, if you agree, be it in passenger demand or revenue or capacity. and in international, and also the US, of course. But there are some silver linings here, which our airlines have been explaining. One is about domestic demand catching up, or domestic capacity being better than international by about 10 to 25%. If you look at the graph at the bottom, the left one is the international and the right is domestic. And you see, especially in the North America region as well as Asia Pacific region, it's around 20 to 25% that domestic capacity is better than international. There's also a trend, as you know, towards leisure travel catching on earlier. Another silver lining is about the cargo operations. So even though purchasing capacity has been falling for your customers, and even though cargo has been 29% lesser than the 2019 levels, still there is revenues coming in due to your operations of repurposing to cargo. And fuel price, of course, has been favorable and has been reflecting to this crisis. It's approximately going to be around 44 BBL as per forecast in 2020, which is also helping your cost front. So that's the.
I have a short question also to Christian. Do you have already some, call it, disruptive changes in the cargo industry at the moment, which you are seeing? What can you share maybe to the audience about this, what you're seeing in the industry? You are muted.
Actually, what we saw in the industry, and I would like to ask this question to our friends of Emirates, is actually where passenger freighters. What we saw was actually that passenger aircrafts were leveraged as freighters on certain routes, and I think in the Emirates network you offered over 100 different destinations for cargo using your 777 fleet. And I think even on a passenger 777, you managed to fly 67 tons. I think that was the record. So are you still doing this at Emirates? Are you still leveraging these passenger freighters? And how will this change when basically you are getting back to normal with your passenger business? That interests me. But that's what we saw actually in industry. A lot of carriers transforming their passenger fleet into so-called passenger freighters, but that's going back again. But I would like to ask the people from Emirates on this call, how is this changing, or are you still flying these passenger freighters at the moment?
Peter's already very keen to answer on
that. Okay, we've repurposed a number of passenger aircraft by removing the cabin seats in economy. So we now have a number, Nathan can probably confirm the number better than I can, but we have a number of aircraft with the seats removed in economy where we can put freight into the cabin. We're also operating belly cargo only. We are operating belly cargo and in the overhead bins, and also belly cargo overhead bins and freight on seats. So we have many of our routes are passengers one way and a freighter on a passenger aircraft the other. So we're still doing this, and we're still planning to do this for the foreseeable future. But the only thing that will trigger, I would think, this stopping would be the return of the passengers on the flights. So we can only do belly cargo on them. But yes, it's in a downturn of the industry, especially when you look at the passenger numbers on SAPNA's top left graph. All of our passengers are international, and you can see that that is not picking up very much, mainly due to restrictions in other countries. You've seen the news, everybody's seen the news that Dubai is open, but not everybody is going down that same road. So people are reluctant to go on holiday when it means they have to spend 14 days in quarantine when they get there and 14 days when they get back. It makes it a bit of a rubbish holiday when you spend all your time locked up in a hotel room. So yes, for the foreseeable future, Emirates are planning on continuing with this passenger aircraft operating freighter routes. I didn't know we'd broken the record for the amount of belly cargo on the 777, but that's something to be proud of, I suppose. And we'll continue to do it and generate some revenue any way that we can. Going forward until the passengers come back, which I've read anything from next year to 2022 to 2023, we'll just have to wait and see. Before that can happen, there has to be confidence in air travel. And I don't think people are not confident about traveling. It is more things like Microsoft Teams have made people realize that you don't have to fly halfway around the world to go to a conference. And also the travel restrictions that are imposed by the governments and countries. That's what's going to stop us building our network back up. I mean, we're still carrying quite a few passengers, but they tend to be repatriations both ways. So people coming back into Dubai that were stuck out of Dubai and people from Dubai going home. But there's still not a massive amount of people going on holiday. I'd love to go. I'd go tomorrow if I could. But it's just, there's not really anywhere to go that I don't spend 2 weeks sat in a hotel.
I have a question for Mohanan for AirAsia. How has the recovery been for AirAsia Malaysia? I know some domestic traffic has come back, but what are you also seeing across your other AOCs? I know in your AOCs, so I think we're seeing like different recovery rates, different demand levels in each of those countries. Yeah, could you share what's the experience been like for AirAsia?
Yeah, for AirAsia, we started in AirAsia Malaysia. We started flying from end of April itself, with slowly picking up the routes. And by July, after the initial Raya celebrations, load is really picked up on the domestic sectors. And we were almost now operating 1/3 of our fleet, with a capacity is coming to something more than 60% of the load. So it is a good pickup for the domestic sectors. Our main concern now is opening the international borders with the other countries, because most of our business used to be on the international flights. So we are hoping to start with Singapore from August 10th onwards. And we already have a couple of flights to the non-affected, non-risky areas of Indonesia and also to Philippines. When we come to the other AOCs, we are having Thailand is also equally going with 1/3 of their fleet, more than 1/3 of the fleet, and they are also having almost 50+ load factor. And again, they are also only operating. The aircraft utilization is not that we normally used to have it in 2019. So we are having a restricted utilizations because of mainly we are not having any red-eye flights. But it is a positive sign in Malaysia because of the low active cases now, and domestic sector is really opening up. India is flying, but India is always having the AirAsia India is flying domestic sectors with load factor is there, but still not much sectors. Every time we used to keep changing the schedules and pairings, as we said, on 24 hours notice because of the containment or lockdown in certain areas and certain cities.
Okay, that's good. The Malaysia base sounds promising. Let's hope you can sustain the demand.
Yes.
Pick up. That's good.
What I'd like to understand mainly from you is what are the operational changes you are seeing, and what do you see flowing on as good practices into the future over here. So airlines have been explaining about restructuring their fleets and crew, retiring inefficient aircraft like the 747s, mortgaging, delaying the deliveries, suspending and consolidation of operations like Sun Express has been doing, for instance. Staff changes and contract rate negotiations, ownership changes, of course, and renegotiating contracts with suppliers like us, or renewing them for a different extended period, and IT landscape and strategy cleansing, looking at the IT infrastructure and seeing what's costing more, prioritizing projects. So these are some changes that are happening immediately with some of our partners, and some that's sustaining to the future is we understand there's more importance given to monitoring resource efficiency, and be it for crew, for aircrafts, or for fuel utilization. more cost conscious or cost optimized planning and tracking decisions. A very important change that's coming through is Agile. So Agile project management within the airline. So BA was telling us a while back that in 2008-2009 crisis, they had converted a lot of their operations or teams into Agile mode of working to save cost and see early benefits and prove it to their management. So Agile is really picking up. And cloud-based IT infrastructure movement is also picking up. And there is also a chance of wastage removal and relooking at their processes across departments and making them leaner. So these are some of the learnings I have from the airlines, but I'd love to hear from you whether this is what you are going through and is there anything else that you'd like to add here? Sean, what do you think? Is this the case in Qantas, or do you think anything else is happening to control your costs and improving your liquidity? But yeah, you can add, anybody can add at a later point as well. The third one, I might have to rush through the next two priorities a bit, but this is a very important priority that airlines are talking about because safety or communicating about safety to ensure keeping flying to passengers as well as staff is one of the differentiators for airlines now. As you've been saying earlier, how to improve confidence in travel. Like Emirates talking about the PPE and the various thermal, check-in processes. Their communications have been great. Singapore Airlines talking about contactless catering, and US Airlines talking about middle seats free. So a lot of communication has been going through. But it has been a struggle for airlines because they've been trying to catch up with all the changing regulations across the globe, countries peaking and troughing at various times and not being standard global procedures for that and different travel restrictions across different countries. So on one side, they need to catch up with all these changes, and on the other side, they need to instill that confidence for coming back to the skies. So what we see happening there at our partners, again, is in the short term and in the long term, rapid response to regulatory changes and travel restrictions. For example, how can we ensure that crew don't travel if they travel to mainland China, for example, in the past, 14 days they shouldn't be traveling to Sydney, those kind of different types of restrictions. Communicating their airline safety measures to staff and packs through different ways. Contactless pre-flight, in-flight, and post-flight processes, different turnarounds and different check-in processes, a high need of integrating with airports and immigrations and health and safety departments and communicating a lot of information to them. Safety and distanced training procedures, because now crew and staff have to be distanced and the training facilities need to be socially distanced. Contact tracing and quarantine and staff travel history tracing, and auditing of the conformance to operational regulations. What seems to be passing on to the future, as airlines were explaining to us, is there will be more contactless self-service apps and operations that will be coming up, be it in check-in, be it in briefing, be it in hub operations. They're also talking about improved communications and integration standards to external departments or within the airline. So integration and interfacing would be better. And e-skilling, that's something that's catching on. So what do you think? Is there something else that's coming up here? Is this the right identification? Is there more?
Yeah, that was a question from my side. I know, for example, from Indigo Airlines that they are also now applying the teaming concept, which is usually used in Japan and Korea. Are there other airlines here also in the group who are also now applying the teaming concept in order to keep the infection rate amongst the crews a little bit mitigated, or is it only Indigo Airlines going for that teaming? Mohanan.
We were having, especially in India, we were also looking into that. What we have done is we have grouped the crew into 4 groups in each basis to make sure that this crew is flying only among the groups, so that even if we have to remove a set of crew due to contact list and all, we used to remove that group and put the other 3 groups into the operations. So we are not mixing the crews each other, only limited crews to contact, fly together. That is one of the method which we used here in Malaysia also in the initial phases when the cases were more. Now we have just opened up. Secondly, when we were talking about this, the business, opening up of the business, one of the things which we have come across here in domestic sector is to give the confidence to the customers that the airline operation is much safer now. For that, what we have done is some of the counters not having any of the touching or all this is being taken. They can scan it, they can take the photo, their temperature is being monitored. All this is giving a little bit of confidence among the customers to come forward and fly now. Initially we were struggling with the very less load now, but now having all this, spreading the news that this airport is much safer now, customers have started booking the loads now. After this Raya, I think I really heard that from August onwards the booking is much higher than what it was there for July month.
Another question is, because in the airline pilots panel, it was discussed that it's also now necessary to train passengers. So not just the crew or the ground staff, but also to train passengers to cope with the new regulations, processes, physical distances, and so on. Are you also envision to have a different communication and maybe really provide trainings to your passengers?
Yes, at the time of check-in, what we really trying to do is to brief the passengers when they are coming to check-in, so that they have been aware of what is the process which is supposed to be going through the airports in each stages. And it is not a lengthy briefing or something, at least a short briefing by our staff to the crew, by keeping the necessity of keeping the distance, not to touch unwanted places, and keep away from the people as much as possible. All this is all the briefings which has been given till how they should be boarding into the aircraft and how they should be keeping their luggage. All this bit of briefing at different stages is being given to the passengers.
This might be even a revenue opportunity, because if you have now a new communication channel with your passengers under the umbrella of training and to cope the COVID-19 situation, you could maybe also consider to try to announce new routes, some special prices and so on. So just giving you an idea how to generate more revenue by using this new communication channel. Sapna, please go on.
Yes, and also to the management, what management is used to, you know, that Tony Fernandez and all used to keep flying in each sectors to make confidence to the people that yes, it is flying is not anything, it is safe to fly and there is no much danger as long as you are keeping the protocol intact.
So Mohan, usually you are doing the crew training. Will you be then also the passenger training manager at AirAsia in the future? Maybe something for your future job profile.
Yes, must be yes. We should start doing something a prior boarding briefing or something like that to the passengers also.
Mohan, do you think e-skilling or remote trainings will catch on more in the future?
Yeah, we also having some of the proposals which is coming in by saying that when they book the tickets, if you have this sending some sort of video presentations to the passengers to educate themselves before even coming to the airports.
How about crew? Do you think crew trainings would also move more into training?
It is already in place. Training is already in place with the different stages for what crew is supposed to do and how it is to be done.
Great, thank you. So moving on, last priority, not the least though. So what you can see here is that some of the challenges that airlines were saying about with their limited resources available, how they are trying to ensure productivity of their aircrafts and staff. So first of all, there is less resources and unpredictable ramp up of resources up and down, responding to demand. There was also a huge movement that they're seeing into remote operations of their workforce. So there are security and technical challenges that they are going through to move their operations to remote. And also finding out ways in which their employees can be remotely engaged and productively engaged. because there were a lot of contract renegotiations as well going on, and it was difficult to keep up employee morale at the same time. You'd also see on the right, there are some examples of airlines. So if you look at the cargo ones, the dark blue section is the grounded kind of fleet or non-utilized kind of fleet, and the lighter blue is the utilized fleet. So most of the passenger aircrafts here show a lot of their fleet that is grounded. And another analysis here show that it's more responding to the demand of more domestic travel and leisure, shorter travel. The narrow bodies are being more utilized than the wide bodies, hence the wide bodies are being more grounded. So that's some of the trends that are coming out in utilization and productivity. And what we are seeing our friends airlines talk about are efficiency of remote operations and employee engagement is something that they're working on. They're also thinking about, some airlines, not all, have been thinking about how their crew and aircrafts can be cross-utilized, of course, not only for cargo, but also for, multi-aircraft skilled crew members, for instance. They're also thinking about how furloughed members, when they come back, the skill retention and the trainings and refreshing them or transferring them to new profiles have to be worked out. They also have been discussing with authorities how to waiver the operational continuity requirements or the recency or the skill requirements of crew. Info privacy and cybersecurity is something they're working on, and managing flexi work operations. So Virgin, for instance, was saying that they were seeing how their vacation plans of crew members and can be adjusted to the new flexi hours of working, and how the furloughs can be and the vacation plans can be managed together. So these are some of the challenges that were explained. And what was seen to go into the future was, of course, airlines do see a higher movement to remote agile workforces. Because their people are moving to remote operations, there will be higher dependence on quantitative and data-reliant decision making, which brings out more needs for analytics and predictions. There'd also be a tendency to have cross-functional teams or cross-department teams, which would break down silos between departments, and agility itself is kind of a breaker of silos. There will be more decision evaluation. So American was saying some time back that decisions made by their staff are more evaluated, and there is more auditing and reporting happening about why this cost has happened or why this number of hours variation has happened. So these are some of the operation changes and transformations that go on to the long term that we have been getting from our friends, but open to you for explaining if there are more. For example, Kelly, what do you think? What's happening at Virgin Australia? Is there more things happening, or is there things going on to the future?
Yeah, I don't know that there's more things happening. Like what you've listed there is definitely areas that the company's been investing in. I guess for us, as well as having sort of the COVID situation, we're also in administration, so it's kind of compounded the need to get a lot of the things you've been talking about in place. So definitely, like in employee engagement, there's been a big effort. We've implemented Workplace, which is Facebook for work, and that's been really positively received and great in terms of keeping people up to date, and giving them, the ability to easily get in contact with people and have their questions answered. And then obviously a huge effort in sort of supporting people from working from home, because now that it's started, that's going to be something that definitely continues on a much bigger scale than it was before COVID. So I don't know that there's anything more to add to what you've got there, but definitely agree with that list.
Question to the audience, because working from home, I think, is a no-brainer. Knowing that the Emirates and NOC is, of course, huge, and physical distance is a no-brainer there, but not all airline OCCs have a lot of space, and sometimes they are very cramped. Have you also considered to enable your OCC staff to operationally control your assets and resources from home, or is it not possible because technology is not allowing it, regulations is not allowing it? Mohanan.
Yeah, we were now at the moment we were doing staff on 50%, team A and team B. It is basically not only doing the resources. We wanted to reduce the risk of just traveling and coming to the office. We are making 2 batches in 2 weeks each. 2 weeks, one batch is doing the work, the other batch is backing up from home, and then switching over to the next batch for coming next 2 weeks. That is for mainly for the planning side, and operational side also we have made their shift. 50% will be working from office and 50% will be working from home. And at some point of time we were almost doing 100% backing up from home in the initial days of May.
And how is it in Auckland, Sergio?
Hey, Daniel. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good point that you've raised here. And as a business partner, after the lockdown and everything is ended, and speaking to some of the business people, they've been raising some of these this particular problem with us, as for example, our engineering liaison team. And I mean, it's a fact as well. I mean, there's a whole lot of paper in the business, right? A lot of process we do paper based, and this team, the liaison team for their engineering and maintenance department, it was kind of a real challenge for them, because what they do is when an aircraft has to do a maintenance, and if it is not there in the books, the maintenance procedures, they come up with these instructions. And what they have to do is a person prepares them, prints them out, and another person signs it on paper. And the lack of technology, things like digital signatures, has actually caused a lot of problem for us, where people are working remotely. How can you get a piece of paper from one person's home to another person's home to actually sign it, right? And then the regulatory piece comes along with it, right? If you don't have that thing, can you actually sign the aircraft off? And we were kind of, I think, testing the waters a little bit there. And these are the common challenges that we are facing with a lot of paper there in our business and in our processes. We kind of testing the waters. We are kind of, okay, are we okay in doing some of these things that we actually starting to do? It's a good thing and it's a bad thing as well, I think so.
Yeah, I see a big opportunity for airlines to maybe even give up costly headquarters and save the cost for the rent. And I think I'm also hearing that the productivity is very high from the workforces. Of course, we need to discuss how to manage things. If you're working from home, how are the ergonomics? Do people have the right bandwidth? What is with the security of the connection from home to the airline server, all that stuff? But I would say working from home is also a chance for the industry and a big opportunity to decrease costs, and on the other hand also enable people to have a very good work-life balance if things are well organized. But that's my opinion.
Exactly, and it is a time as well where people can challenge some of these processes, right? Yeah, see, we've been dealing with all these things, and it's get to a stage where, yeah, we have to look at these things and we have to change, right? So it is becoming an opportunity, I would say, more or less, to enable change.
And if you say it's a challenge to sign off papers and so on, I can tell you usually the German treasury is one of the most trailing behind from the technology. It's pretty much everything on paper, and you can really make your tax declaration completely electronically, and also certain doctors are offering this. I was really amazed recently. Everything is going electronically, so I'm just asking why airlines don't use this technology. I think we can also sign off everything with our devices we have since many years. So maybe just apply some of these technologies from the consumer industry into our business. That would be amazing.
Hi, so I realize I just have 30 minutes left today, so forgive me, I might rush through some of the information and I'd pause more on slides where I know you'd have a lot of inputs and would like to discuss more. So this is where we are moving on to how we've talked a bit about it, but we are going to talk a bit more about how technological practices and digital tools are going to support the immediate transformations as well as the longer term ones. This is some of the information that I was coming across, which I found interesting. In the short term, there seems to be a retracing back into more manual operations. So digital tools are being shelved, and it's more of trusting on qualitative expertise that's being seen in these periods. And when I was looking at a survey that's conducted by AFD and an Apex group, there was a feedback that for the longer term, especially, that's the post-COVID or the extended COVID reopening phase, there are 63.7% of airline and airport professionals who thought that digitization and technology practices would improve. You know, there's a cliche kind of joke that's running, isn't it? What triggered digital transformation at your organization? Is it cost? Is it management reviews? Or is it process reviews? Or is it COVID? So it turned out that most of them said COVID had been the biggest trigger of digitization. One of the interesting things that you can see here is in the graph below, in the pre-COVID situation. The dark blue graphs show the state-of-the-art system implementations in various phases of airline operations. And you see that except for dispatch, most of the other areas of airline operations are only around 40% implemented with state-of-the-art systems, whereas 60% is either outdated systems or legacy systems or systems that are insufficient for the future. The main reasons that we have collected from some of our airlines for this was trust in qualitative experiences, especially during these kind of disruption periods. They're feeling that tech is not mature enough to account for all sorts of irregular situations and scenarios over qualitative expertise. Disruption periods are usually shorter, so not long enough, like this COVID period was actually an opportunity. So when there's shorter disruption periods, they tend to retrace back to manual operations, not trust on tools or digitization much, and then get back to the normal business as usual digitization processes or tools. They also talked about complexity of bringing out the power of data across departments, because data is in different formats across departments, and they know there's a lot of power to tap there, but unfortunately they're unable to have a centralized data stream bringing out good information and decision support from it. And there's also a lack of configurability, they were saying, in technological systems to support exceptional scenarios, as is happening currently. BAU is fine, but then exception scenarios is difficult. And also a small proportion of people feeling that technology is not going to be enabling their decisions, but going to be replacing their decisions, which should not give a good comfort level. There's also, for example, KLM, our friends, Roland, for example, explaining that the ART kind of agile transformations that have been happening even before COVID at KLM have resulted in around 20% improvement in efficiency of efficiency of operations, and 25% improvement in staff satisfaction, employee satisfaction. Which is good, and which is something that's highly recommended, and especially during these kind of tough times. So agile transformation is something, I've said that earlier, but then repeating that's something that's catching on during this phase. So that's about what's happening. I'm happy to hear your views, but I just want to pause on this slide over here. Forgive me due to lack of time. This is some of the digital practices, technology practices, and system functionalities that have been talked about to help with the 4 priorities that airlines have been going through.
Peter, you have a question.
Yes. obviously not being a unionized airline, we're affected from changes in process and that sort of thing, possibly less than some others. But one thing we have noticed during this period of, what are we on now, 4 months, I suppose, is that the crew engagement's actually been very good. We're doing very unusual operations, which in the past the crew would have complained about continually. And what we're finding is they're much more willing to go the extra mile and do different patterns and that sort of thing than they normally would. I just wondered how this was having an impact on the unionized airlines, and especially when it comes to operating outside their union agreements. Are they finding a similar sort of thing? Or are they having to fight with the unions to get their operations running now?
No, that's a good point. I know this from a Malaysian airline, for example, that they were discussing the extension of flight times, because instead of flying one leg, having a layover, flying it back due to the quarantine risk, they were discussing with the union to fly a two-leg turnaround in order to mitigate the risk of being quarantined. And I am also reading that many other unions agree on different rules which are now necessary to mitigate quarantine risks. I don't know if some of the other airlines, Singapore Airlines, Air New Zealand, Air Asia, you also want to share what you are currently experiencing with your unions, if you have a union, of course.
AirAsia is not having unions, but what is being told, we are already been going to practice in August with the turnaround flights with a special exemption from CAM or Civil Aviation Authority for extending the FTP on specialized routes. We have given applications to go for a turnaround flights instead of making it layover flights. Especially on AirAsia X wide-body aircraft, we are planning some of the routes to come back, which earlier used to be a layover patterns.
Roland, how are you managing it with the famous Dutch union? Is there also something where you can share some insights?
Yeah, what you can see here is safety is more important than union rules at this moment. That people don't want to stay too long in an outside country. So especially for some of the passenger cargo flights, because we also do cargo flights with our passenger aircrafts, we do very strange routes. And sometimes we even had a 6-pilot operation on one aircraft just to avoid some layovers, which is not allowed by unions, but all unions are now agreeing with this, that safety is more important than union rules.
And are you still having your 2 weekly planning in place, or your more short-term planning?
We are fortunate that we always did a weekly planning, because every week we plan another week. So that's a real benefit in the really fast changing schedules. Because every day, if I come in, I see that a lot of schedules has been changed again.
What does this mean to you? Do you think COVID would be a trigger for higher digital adoption? And if not, why do you think it will not be so?
I don't really understand your question.
Do you think that, so in the previous slide, we were talking about a survey that's talking about 63.7% of respondents thinking that there'll be higher adoption of digital tools and technology because of COVID, accelerated by COVID. What do you think? Do you think there'll be more technology adoptions, or do you think it'll be lesser, and why, if so?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because all innovation projects has been stopped at KLM. But existing ones are still continuing. So we are working on a crew notify app that can easily be used to notify crew about changes in the operation.
What's happening at Cathay Pacific, Deepak? What do you think? Even you can also explain the post-COVID scenario as well, not current scenario. Do you think there'll be more adoption in the future? Or do you think there'll be more agile operations in the future? Okay, so there's some information that we've collected from our partners about how they are using technology and what they would like to have in order to support their operational changes. On the response side, I'm not going through the entire list, but mainly they are looking at flexible planning tools, configurable to dynamic changes in operations, easy repurposing of crew and aircraft to different service types, easy and extendable rules, configurable rules so that they can make rule changes or FTP or complement changes quickly without having to come back to vendors like us. And as Roland was explaining, more communication tools, especially to crew members, to hotels, transport, logistics, to slots, to hubs, so higher communication applications or facilities. You can stop me at any time and add on. On the cost control side, again, applications that are scalable to the huge volume of fleet and crew restructures and transfers that are happening across, aircrafts or fleets. More interest in cost and efficiency monitoring dashboards, higher importance in cost analytics and predictions of what are going to be cost troughs and higher points. More importance on training scheduling because there's a lot of need for reskilling and moving crew across operations these days. Agile IT partners are what they are looking for, and cloud movement to cloud is something that's being looked at with a high importance. Most purchases now of vendor software or vendor projects are very much more value-based and it's highly more evaluated these days. On the operational safety side, again, there are questions on how flexible the IT tools are with respect to changing a check-in process window or changing a report time of crew, or how easily you can communicate to the immigration department. Do you have briefing apps or hub mobiles which reduces contact between people? Ad hoc safety training schedulers, of course. Contact tracing applications and quarantining applications was a short-term need that had come up, especially in the earlier stages, because otherwise they had to spend a lot of time. The staff had to spend a lot of time on the applications to find out which crew came in contact with passenger who was affected, which crew came in contact with another crew that was affected, where else did the crew travel in the last X days. So a quick app or quick report that brings out that information is found to be very useful. Of course, a powerful rule engine, which considers all the impacts like fatigue or the flight time limitations, repurposing of a crew member to cargo operations, as something that considers all that attributes and is able to alert effectively and produce auditing and reports that helps with the operational conformance. And on productivity side, of course, applications that support remote operations, like workspace, of course, the workplace, isn't it? Workplace, the FP equivalent that Kerry was talking about earlier. And all systems that can be remotely made available, higher performing, higher focus on cybersecurity and privacy-based systems. There is more need for flexi reports that were coming up, or self-creatable dynamic reports that were coming up, because there was more need of analysis of block hour variations, reasons of cost spikes due to COVID, at what phase that happened, so that requirement was coming up. adaptable, rules and adaptable processes to the new contracts that were being signed with crew members, and so on. So these, and of course, more monitoring and more predictions on the productivity and utilization side. And as I mentioned earlier, and something I would like to understand from you was the higher importance of centralized interdepartment or data that comes in from external sources as well, to have a central data repository and to produce good analytics and predictions out of it, and that supporting the planning and OCC process. That need was always there, but then it seems to be increasing nowadays, and that it's coming up more to us. What do you think? Is this a good coverage, or are there more digital tools and technology changes that you are doing at your airlines?
Peter.
Okay, there's a lot here actually to go through. I think the biggest area we're having difficulty with at the moment is actually reporting, because we have very few systems that have real-time data in for reporting. So our main reporting systems, I think lots of airlines are probably in a similar situation where your operational reporting, you take a snapshot once a day, and then you do your general daily reports that go out to the world to say how you performed yesterday and that sort of thing. We're finding that it's very, it doesn't meet our requirements now. We need more real-time reports going forward. What we are seeing then more is people engaging, people being more flexible with what they need, but everybody is looking to get data to look to the future to try and cut costs. What I would like to add, because I know we're drawing to a close, is how supportive IBS has been through this time. We've had lots of changes at very short notice to our systems, lots of scripts that we've required, changes to rules and everything, and IBS have been amazing in helping us get through this time and keeping our system up to date. We are, at one point, we were daily rewriting new rules for crew requirements to stations due to COVID and that sort of thing. We've had some system issues, I will admit, but a lot of that comes down to how many changes that we've made. And we've probably made more changes over the last 4 months to our crew management system than we have done in the last 2 or 3 years. So I would like to thank IBS for their support on this, because I don't think we'd have got through this period of time without it.
Thanks for that.
Question to Abhilash from Frost and Sullivan. What are you getting from the industry? Is there something we were missing out here, or is there something which you see also as the top 3 items currently going on in terms of technology enablers?
I think what Satna has covered is sort of right spot on, and whatever I have had in my interactions with the industry. But there has been a few interactions that I had with a few airlines and specifically airports, where they say the digital transformation has actually accelerated when it comes to the slide which you showed, where with regards to the digital transformation activities happening. So there are a few airports, at least the bigger airlines and airports, where the investments have actually increased when it comes to self-service kiosks, digital applications. There, and in those areas, they have reprioritized their digital strategies, and they are focusing on the things which can help them go through this particular phase. So yeah.
Thanks for the note, Abhilash. Understanding we have around 12 minutes left. There is another area I would like your inputs really on from all of you. We were talking in this slide about how technology enables the shorter term things mostly, but next we are talking about the sustained operational practices that airlines have been explaining to us that will go on, and also digital practices that will support that. So I've divided this based on inputs into 4 groups: improved business processes, improved IT landscape, project implementation, and people practices. At a high level, if you start from the business processes, there seems to be, again, what I'm trying to convey here is what will filter through into the long term and sustain, not about what might be immediately happening, what are the opportunities for the future. So I'd like you to shift that to a future angle and come on this slide. For instance, the department silos might break more because, especially because of remote operations, and this jolt being a time for airlines to rethink their processes, thinking how waste can be removed, how it can be made leaner. Do we really need bid line, version of bidding? Do we really need such a long-term manpower processes? Would that lead to a continuously improving plan? So be it a schedule plan, be it a manpower plan, be it a pairing and rostering plan, would it take me more feedbacks from the next stage, from tracking or from post operations, and keep improving the plan to produce more effective plans? Another thing that was coming out is the centralized data, as we were talking about, centralized interdepartment and externally obtained data that will give you decision support to make the right informed choices during disruptions and irregular operations. There was also a turn towards, learning-based disruption recovery that was coming out, which in the next slide I'll talk about how machine learning can come in there. So not just reacting based on qualitative experience in the user OCC person's head at that time, but also using the machine to see what was learned from the past to apply that into future disruption management. Higher need for cost and efficiency tracking and predictions, and as Abhilash and even Roland was explaining earlier, more self-service applications and crew communication applications, etc. Enhanced communication and integration to systems. There was also an interesting thing that was coming about multi-skilled resources, be it crew, and also be it crew or other staff, and also liquid resources. That is, would you go into kind of a mortgaging or leasing kind of model for your aircrafts and crew? And also e-reskilling was also coming out as a thing that will filter onto the future. That's on the business process side. On IT landscape and strategy side, what was coming out was higher movement into clouds and SaaS more than on-premise costlier installation for airlines, because the pinch might have been felt, especially during the COVID phases, for having on-premise infrastructures. More desire for end-to-end modular systems because they would like to simplify their landscape and reduce the cost in the complex integrations and have end-to-end consolidated systems in their landscape. The legacy system lack of configurability and difficulties to move it into remote operations was also felt. So they might go for more modern technologies and invest in new tech software, which are scalable, available, high performant, and configurable. So those were 4 of the things they were looking for. Of course, security and privacy were more important because things were moving remote. And another thing coming out was big data, which we talked about as centralized data. So big data on shared infrastructure or shared platforms like the cloud. On the people practices side, definitely Agile is something that's catching on. That's something that's coming on consistently from different airlines. Flexi work shifts and remote workforce might be a higher reality in the future, and cross-functional teams that helps in breaking down departmental, standard variations and operational variations, thus bringing more central or single source of truth information to make better decisions. On the project implementation side, we have been talking to a lot of our partners and customers over here. So they have been reprioritizing their projects, seeing what is critical, going for 6 monthly kind of early win projects. They've also asked us how easily we can remotely implement projects for them instead of online on-site presence of our people. So do everything remotely, which has been successfully happening. And The project life cycles have been looked at. A lot of wastage of processes, a lot of unnecessary documentations are moving out, and things are moving faster for earlier delivery. So these are some of the things that have been told to us will move on to the future, but open to you and happy to hear from you in the next 6 minutes.
Stagiaire, do you want to speak about your API comment in the chat notes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common thing here in our airline. I mean, we have quite a lot of legacy systems, which I mean, our entire maintenance operations is run out of SAP, which is not in the latest version. I mean, we're having to pay for that right now, not having data available for our businesses. We don't have APIs. I mean, if you're thinking about planning, right? Do you have real-time information available to the business to actually plan? We are struggling with some of those aspects, and I think having a real good API strategy is very important to be agile. Availability of data, real time, actually makes a real big differentiator for some of our businesses.
Well, if you want to have solutions for that, get back to us. And if you decide, let's say by end of next week, I can make you a very good price for all the challenges you have at the moment.
I bet you can.
So, Sapna, is this now the summary, or is there one more last slide you want to present?
Yeah, that's an option, but this is the slide that I wanted to understand most about. If there is disagreement here, is there other views or anything to debate here from any of you on this panel? I'm happy to hear.
I believe if people disagree, they would actively express this, and I think everybody being calm is confirming this. Or is there somebody who disagrees? No. So, Sapna, please go.
So this is kind of a summary of what we have discussed, but more about a longer term view. What are the different tools and digital practices that will help you in the future post-COVID so that transformation can be done, operational efficiency can be achieved? One, looking for integrated end-to-end modular products with single source of truth information. Products that can easily fit into your airline landscape so that you don't have to have complex landscapes with you, which increases your IT costs. This also helps you make or respond dynamically to customer demand fluctuations, which I'm sure you're going to face in the next 1 to 2 years before things recover. Please look at centralized data-driven decision support. We have talked a lot about that, but linked to that point, analytics is something that we request you to consider not only in planning, but also in the OCC, because especially because your task force workforce is going remote and separated out, move from qualitative to qualitative plus analytics-based decisions. There's also importance given to machine learning, higher importance to machine learning that's coming over here. Learn from your past disruption handlings and past managements and come out with better solutions. Very important thing coming out of this is continuous improvement planning and tracking processes. Starting from schedules or network plans downwards to even your tracking processes. Everything has to receive feedback from around and keep on improving. It has to be an integrated, continuously improving plan that takes feedback from the next stage of the operations process. Try to break down your interdepartment data silos for that, and that'll be most effective. IoT is something that was coming up in that area where feedback comes in naturally using sensors at the airport or sensors in your ground handling, sensors at different parts of your operations, which will feed back into your planning and tracking. And of course, when you choose out partners, look for modern technology that wouldn't make you feel the pinch that you might have during these phases of COVID. High configurability is something to look out for. Real-time, as was mentioned just now, very important point there, real-time dynamic information, scalability to your variants and ramping up and down of operations in the next 1 to 2 years especially, available systems remotely as well as wherever, like since self-service applications are going to go up, your mobile should have check-in provision, or a briefing information coming in. Crew should be able to look at one app and find out what's happening at the airport, what's happening with the flight schedule, everything in one place. And you should have devices that are platform and device independent. And work agility is definitely helpful because, as we've explained in many slides before, and look out for remote agile partners that can work with you offline in these stages and produce and execute projects for you in agile, quick win, or early benefit results, giving you early benefits that you can prove to your management. Any more thoughts here, or do you agree to this list or disagree to this list? Having said that, we are at the last minute of the presentation. I'm sorry. I hoped, I know a lot of you have spent a lot of time with us today. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope this was useful, and I hope some of the findings here from other airline experiences have helped you. I like what Cathay Pacific had said, Deepak, that that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That's truly something that we believe in. So you as airlines and we as your digital partners, let's keep flying together. So good luck to all of us during these tough times.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sapna. I think a very insightful and comprehensive presentation. I'm thanking everybody also for the lively questions and also for the attendance. And we are looking forward to having you with us again in the next week, where we have 2 sessions, and the Virtual Ops 2020 season is going on till September. And if you liked what you have seen, please share the word. And if you want to attend any of the upcoming sessions, just register that we can invite you. So very important, please stay healthy and safe, and looking forward for the rebound of travel all over the world. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.